Hello, I'm back. Couldn't stay gone. Told you I like to talk. And I found something that I feel like I need to talk about today. Uh, Myself, like everyone else, I have been paying attention to what's going on in our world. We've got this terrible tragedy called coronavirus that's taking so many lives and affecting so many people and affecting everything from our kids, our education system, to our economy, and it's very tragic. In my opinion, it's probably right up there. It rates right up there with the tragedy of the Second World War. Certainly, uh, the loss of life is getting pretty darn close. Um, I have also noticed that, like never before in my recollection, I'm 64, and in 64 years, I have never seen so much uh, animus and hostility uh, in our political environment. Uh, Nothing seems to satisfy the Democrats about what our president is doing, and vice versa. Uh, the social media platforms are working overtime on the behalf of the Democratic Party and the liberals. Uh, the mainstream, as they call it, media, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, uh, are working overtime to discredit the President of the United States. I have never seen anything like this. In time of war, which basically we are at war with this virus, in time of great national tragedy, they should be pulling in the same direction. They should be working together to solve the problem, but instead, uh, they're working against him. And I mean, everybody is working against him. Uh, it's not just uh, the Democratic Party that's working against our president. It's also uh, the media, social media. Uh, they have, from the day he was elected, they have done everything in their power to remove him from office, uh, to get him out. And right now, with this tragedy we call coronavirus, and all of the people that are suffering and dying as a result of this, both economically and physically suffering, um, they should be pulling together. I don't, I don't understand it. I really don't. I understand what their motive is. They're after power and authority. They want all power and all authority to do everything, and they're not going to be happy until they get it. Um, they should, frankly, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be removed from office. What's going on in our country is insane, absolutely insane. When I discovered some time back that I'd had no one else I could vote for president but Donald Trump, because all of the potential uh, alternatives had either dropped out of the race or weren't going to make the cut. Let's say. Uh, I had to support Donald Trump because I was not going to support Hillary Clinton with her track record. Um, So he wasn't my first choice by any means. Um, I had all kinds of issues with him, issues that I won't go into now. Let's just say I didn't think he would make a good choice. He would have been somebody fine to handle my money and my investments, but I didn't necessarily think he would make a good choice as president. But I started following him because I didn't have a choice. By the time everything got around to Texas, all our options were gone. So I started following him. I started paying attention to him. I started doing a little bit of research into President Trump, then candidate Trump. And I started noticing that some of the things he some of the things that he says are said for effect. It's a technique that he used in business to gauge the response of whatever his audience might be it potential voters or someone that he's making a deal with on real estate. He would say things just to get a response, just to see what their response was, and then somewhere in his business mind, in his business ethic, he would use that response to come back later and achieve his goal. I have also noticed that sometimes he could be arrogant, but very few presidents have gone through their entire presidency not sounding arrogant, with the possible exception of Jimmy Carter. I think at some point they all sound that way. And if you've achieved that office in this country, then maybe you have the right to sound a little arrogant once in a while. That being said, when Donald Trump misspeaks, and I believe he has on several occasions misspoken, I believe, considering we all make that mistake at some point, we all misspeak, his explanation should be simple enough, considering the past that so many other Democratic candidates have received. Joe Biden has opened his mouth and inserted his foot quite a few times. And I'll share a few of those with you because some of them are rather funny to me at any rate. They're tragic because I really do think there's he's having cognitive issues of some type. And I believe they're tragic, but they can be humorous too as well. Donald Trump made a comment back in June of 2015, and that comment was this: when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending the best. They're not sending you. They're not sending people that have lots of problems. I'm sorry. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. I'm sorry, gosh. And some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they're telling us what they're getting. Well, I'm from Louisiana. Had he said that about people from Louisiana, I would have been insulted. I would have been angry. But on the other side of that, I would have to agree that Louisiana, just like any place, has got bad people and they've got good people. I've heard a lot about what's going on in Mexico and the high crime rate and the drugs and the drug dealers and so on and so forth, and this group called MS-13. And yes, they have sent some people over here. There have been some, I won't say Mexico itself or the Mexican government has sent them, but they have come over here and they have been apprehended in many cases. But I think this is one of those cases where Donald Trump misspoke, or should I say, stuck his foot in his mouth. And I think that I personally believe that, and I haven't found one, but I personally believe that he should have apologized for this. But let's look at it. It's 5 years ago. 5 years ago, he was running for office, and he made this statement. Well, in 2019, Joe Biden said at a Democratic debate, undocumented immigrants need to get in line. The country has been right to cherry pick high-skilled immigrants, notably those with advanced degrees. And he got plenty of feedback on that. But they're not beating him. They're not beating him over the head with it. They're not killing him over it. They basically forgave him because he apologized for it. In let's see, February of 2007, Biden said while running for the 2008 presidency, he issued what he thought was praise for then Senator Barack Obama, saying, and I quote, "He was the first mainstream African American who is articulate, bright, and clean." Shortly thereafter, at the Democratic National Committee's winter meeting, he issued his apology, and I quote, "I want to say that I truly regret that the words I spoke offended people that I admire very much." End quote. He didn't, you never hear about that anymore. You never hear about what he said at that point. It's water under the bridge. May of 2020, in an interview with a radio program called The Breakfast Club, the presumptive Democrat nominee told the host, Charlemagne the God, and I quote, "I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black." End quote. August of 2019, at a campaign event in Iowa, Biden told supporters, "Poor kids are just as bright and talented as white kids." He quickly corrected himself after some applause by adding, "wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids." The thing is, he isn't being held accountable for those things. And frankly, I think that's fine. I think it's fine that that's considered water under the bridge. Because I believe we all misspeak. I believe we all have problems with what we say sometimes. Now, some people hate Donald Trump enough to where they're never going to forgive him for anything he says. And I think that's wrong. I think that's just outright wrong. I've got a very good friend who says they're a Democrat because Donald Trump insulted the Hispanics. And this individual happens to have been born in Mexico. And so I want to address a couple of things for their benefit. And hopefully I can do this in a way that understand the potential of what's going on. Again, yes, Donald Trump's 2015 comments about Mexico and the people that were coming over here could have been said much better, much differently. But the minute he said it, the media grabbed it and started shoving it down everybody's throat. They're still doing it. He made a comment about hydroxychloroquine, and they're still shoving that one down everybody's throat. Although there's tons and tons of evidence that it works. And that's going to be another video, but there's tons of evidence that it actually works. And I'm sure YouTube, being one of the organizations that's doing such a fired up job to censor what people are saying, will probably take my YouTube channel away from me after this. What I want to talk to you about next is an initiative that was signed into place by executive order of the White House by Donald Trump on 9 July 2020. And this is known as the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative. And Donald Trump signed this into law. Well, he signed an executive order bringing it about. And he's getting a lot of grief about this from the Democrats, because they want to look like the heroes all the time. They don't want him to accomplish anything, which is why they've continued to fight and rail against him at every opportunity. But this is what this White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative does. And in my opinion, this is right up there with the 1986 Immigration Reform Act signed by Ronald Reagan, in which 3 million illegal immigrants were granted amnesty. Okay? I think this is right up there with that. And on another note, he has guaranteed that he will, on 10 July 2020, he said he will sign an order with a road to citizenship for DACA recipients, the Dreamers, the DREAM Act. He is going to make sure that happens, because when he sent it in originally, his goal wasn't to stop them from staying so that he could kick them back out. His goal was to make it legal. Okay? These executive orders are great. They don't always, if you can challenge them in court, they can often be shot down. However, when he challenged this one and it went to the Supreme Court, his goal wasn't to destroy their chances of being here. His goal was to make it legal, to make it binding, put it through Congress, have it made into law, so that it's not an executive order anymore. It was sent back to him, but it was sent back with the understanding that it was written improperly. So all he had to do was rewrite it and meet their requirements, and the Supreme Court would hear it again and probably vacate the executive order, meaning it would no longer be in force. Now, he chose not to do that. He sees it as a waste of time and a waste of money, I'm sure. So he has guaranteed on July 10, 2020, that he is going to issue an executive order that leads to a path to citizenship. Now, as a teacher, I run the Maritime Academy for a local district. I teach predominantly Hispanic children. Hispanic and African American children make up the bulk of our school district. And I think the large majority of the district is Hispanic. Um, my students, some of them come in and they're fired up and they're ready to go. They want to go. They want desperately to get into the maritime industry. To do that, you have to have a couple of things. The first thing you have to have is a TWIC card. That's TWIC, Transportation Workers Identification Credential. This is something that we pay for. It's $123 and change. And with the funds that I get from the businesses that my business partners that help support the program, I am able to pay for that for these students. However, some of these students are here, and the only because of the way they came here, the only immigration document they may have is a card. I think it's called a work authorization card, and it clearly says on there not good for re-entry. Not, in other words, if they leave, they can't use it to come back in, I guess. On the back of this card, there's a code, or on the front of the card. I'm sorry, on the front of the code, there's a code, and on this code, if it's not the right code, they can't get their TWIC card. Without the TWIC card, there's no way they can work in the maritime industry. They can't work at the airport. They can't work for the port of Houston. They can't work for any port facility. They can't work on any vessel. They can't drive a truck that hauls hazardous materials such as gasoline or petroleum products or bottled gases. They can't do any of those things. Anything that handles hazardous materials, they have to have a TWIC card for. And there's no way for them to get it. There's no way to change that code. What Donald Trump wants to do with his new executive order is going to fix that. Gives them a path to citizenship. Right now, these kids don't know where to go. It lets them have a job, but there are very few jobs out there that can pay someone right out of high school $85,000 a year, a year and a half out of high school, where a high school student can be making $85,000 a year. They can do that in the maritime industry. They can come right out of high school, right out the door, and be earning $40,000 to $45,000 a year. This is a game changer for these kids. It's a game changer for their entire family. But because it's not done properly, they can't achieve this goal. The first student I had that I ran into this was a young lady who was desperate to do this. She wanted to work in the maritime industry, and we couldn't get her TWIC card because of her immigration status. Been here since she was a baby. But all she had was a work authorization card, which did not have the right code on it. I couldn't get her a card. I watched her cry, and I watched her leave school before she finished as a result. She thought it was not worthwhile to stick around. Basically said to hell with it. Thank goodness, thank God, the next year she came back and finished high school, and I happened to run into her at the parking lot of the school, and I was never so happy to see somebody finish in my life. And she had managed to work it out, but she could have done it a year earlier if this had been fixed. And that's where he's heading with this. That's what he wants to do. The Hispanic, the executive order on the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative, let me briefly tell you what that's going to accomplish. First of all, and I don't have all of the names of the different individuals right now, but it's going to be a committee of about 20 people, and these 20 people are going to be of these 20 people are going to be Hispanics that have been very successful in business. Goya Foods, the CEO of Goya Foods is going to be the head of this committee. That's the one that sticks in my mind, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name. I should have it here, but I don't. But he's the CEO of Goya Foods, super guy. I've seen him on a couple of TV interviews, and and it's a great company, a multi-billion-dollar company, and he runs it, and he is going to head up this commission. Let me go ahead and read this to you. Issued on July 9th, 2020, by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and in order to improve Hispanic Americans' access to education and economic opportunities, it is hereby ordered as follows. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to read some of the highlights. The success of Hispanic Americans is integral to the economic future of our country. As more than 60 million Hispanics live in the United States today, Hispanics are the largest minority group in the country. Hispanics are also the nation's youngest majority racial or ethnic group. Generations of Hispanics, constituting different backgrounds and cultures, have contributed to building a strong and prosperous America. Their collective contributions continue a legacy of inspiration that is a cherished part of the American experience. And it says further, while we celebrate the many ways Hispanic Americans have contributed to our nation, we also recognize that they face challenges in accessing educational and economic opportunities. In the last 3 years, my administration has supported school choice, Hispanic serving institutions, HSIs, and new career pathways, including apprenticeships and work-based learning initiatives, because quality education options offering multiple pathways to economic success are critical to developing our nation's potential for the jobs of tomorrow. My administration has also supported investment in economically distressed communities, including through opportunity zones and economic opportunities for small and minority-owned businesses. The initiative set forth in this order increases emphasis on the connection between educational and economic opportunities, and exploring and promoting opportunities for Hispanic Americans, both through and outside traditional education options that lead to economic prosperity. Today, Americans have more paths to prosperity than any previous generation, and it is necessary to ensure that Hispanic Americans have every opportunity to access these pathways and to fulfill their educational and economic aspirations. The mission of the initiative shall be to improve access by Hispanic Americans to educational and economic opportunities, identify and promote educational and workforce employment practices that have improved educational, professional, and economic outcomes for Hispanic Americans, encourage private sector initiatives and foster public-private partnerships that improve access to educational and economic opportunities for Hispanic Americans. Like I said, it's my opinion that this is the best thing since the Immigration Reform Act of 1986. When he comes out with the changes that he wants to make in the in DACA, the things that he wants to do with DACA, I really truly believe if he doesn't get, if they don't fight him, which I believe, unfortunately for the Hispanics of this country, I believe they're going to fight him all the way. I believe they're going to do everything they can to destroy his efforts and his presidency. Uh, don't underestimate our president. Don't underestimate this country. Don't underestimate uh, the people in this country who want to see things changed, who want to see uh, uh, fairness and opportunity for everyone, not just liberals, not just conservatives, not just Democrats, and not just Republicans, but for everybody. Don't let that fool you. We are going to succeed, despite what's going on in Portland and D.C. and Chicago. We survived the troubles of the 60s. I would imagine a lot of you don't remember that. I know most of the people I work with probably wouldn't remember the 60s, but I do. We survived that, and we'll survive more. We will survive longer. And I hope and I pray that someday this generation can look into the eyes of our kids and our grandkids and say, hey, we saved this country for you. It's yours. We busted our hump to make it right. We have done our best to educate you. We have done our best to give you the things that we didn't have, and yet still teach you that you have to work for everything that you get to earn the privileges and the rights. We have to instill in our kids today that if we don't work hard, if we don't uphold the standards of our country, if we don't uphold what's good and righteous and whole, then it's all going to go down the toilet, and it's going to go down quick. We are looking at all of these people that are rioting and having a fit and tearing stuff up, and that does, one of the people I have tremendous amount of respect for was Martin Luther King. His marches and his program didn't include burning Wendy's down, or burning and breaking into buildings and murdering people. Unfortunately, at that time, the violence came from the other side, the enforcement side of the law. Well, those days are gone. They can be gone, but now we've got so much hatred, and we've got a news media and political structure that supports that. What kind of idiot mayor is going to say, "Oh, it's okay to destroy our city," until they start getting close to their own home, and then it's, "Oh wait, we can't do this." What kind of district attorney is going to arrest a man for defending his own home? Yeah, he used a gun. He didn't kill anybody, but he scared them off. I can't see that happening in Texas. I don't think it's happened here. And if I saw a group of people approaching my home and it was just me and my wife, yes, I would do the same. Yes, absolutely. You have a right to defend your home. It's called the Castle Doctrine. It's crazy. There's no reason for it. But we've gone through it before, and we can survive it again. There will be changes, but let's get past. Let's put the hatred and the nonsense and the BS off to the side for right now. Let's get past this corona thing. Let's get past this problem. And then we can go about fixing anything else that's a perceived problem. But let's not give the store away. Okay? We have to maintain what is constitutionally accurate and correct. And we cannot let a handful of people, and it is only a handful of people, we cannot allow a handful of people to tell the rest of the world how we're going to live. We just can't do that. And that's what they've been doing. That's what's been happening. Like I said, I want desperately for my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to have a country that I had, the country I was able to grow up in, the country that I love dearly, the country my father and my uncles fought and went ashore at Normandy to protect, to defeat the Third Reich. They were willing and did in many cases. 72 million people died in that war. 40 million of those people were civilians. The rest were military. 72 million. And they just wanted to stop one man and his empire. And well, two men, if you want, two people if you count. You got to count Japan, but 72 million people died in World War II. So we need to keep this country as it is. We need to keep it safe and strong. We need to be the most powerful country in the world. I don't care what anybody says. We need the respect of the rest of the world. We don't need politicians and crackpots and people who hate this country telling us what to do or trying to shoot us down. Anyway, thank you for listening. I will undoubtedly be back unless YouTube takes my channel away. And I hope everybody stays well and healthy. And I'll talk to you later. Thank you.